This is Miss Lizzie, and I want to welcome you to the Queen Lizzie podcast. Together, we will go through the history of Rosewood, Florida, and watch as the once prosperous town rises out of the bloodshed, fire, and ash to reveal the people, the memory, and the legacy of Rosewood. Watch every Thursday on Facebook and YouTube, or listen to our story on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Hello, everybody. I am Lizzie Robinson Jenkins, representing not only the Rosewood Foundation, but the personal testimonies and history of cherished friends and family. You are now watching the Queen Lizzie podcast. Today, we are talking with Jerry Urso. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you. So glad to finally be here.
I'm so glad you are here. Looking forward to our conversation today. And I want you all to know that Jerry and I met in 2012. And he was on my board. However, he requested, because it was so much work, he requested to disappear, resign. He resigned from the board, and he wanted to be the researcher for the Mason, the Masonic. I'll let you tell him.
Well, I still stay as the historian for Rosewood.
Yes, he is the historian for Rosewood, so he's still on the board. But he has his very own interests, and he's doing something for Rosewood and for the community as a historian that he enjoys doing. So I'll let him tell you his story.
Well, I'm currently the curator and founder of the Solly Mitchell Civil Rights Museum in Jacksonville, Florida, which is under the protection of the Most Worshipful Union Grand Lodge of Florida, and I serve under the Honorable Gus Harris Jr. as our 20th Grand Master. I'm also the historian for the James Weldon branch of Asala and the Rosewood Foundation.
Wonderful, wonderful. Asala too? So you know Hazel Gillis?
Yes, ma'am. She's going to be listening today.
Oh, my God. And Hazel is the chairperson for the Maholder Gussie Brown Carrier Scholarship, okay? And she, too, is from Jacksonville. And her husband, George, is also a member of the Rosewood Board. Hey, Jacksonville.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and you have done a lot of research on the Rosewood Masonic. Tell us about the name of the Masonic and anything else you want to share about the Masonic.
So when I first became historian, I was so confused because they had these lodge records that said Rosewood 148. Then you see other records that said Magnolia 148. And for the longest time, I thought, was there two different jurisdictions? Were they the same lodge? And then when we went to the tax assessor's office, when we discovered the document where they bought the property from the Sauls family, and it says Magnolia 148, and I'm like, okay, so that's how the building was established, but who's the Rosewood people? And that was going back and forth. So it wasn't until years later, in the basement of our Grand Lodge, there was a cardboard box, and when I opened it up, it was books from signature books from 1909 to 1919, and all of a sudden I said Magnolia Lodge, Magnolia Lodge, Magnolia Lodge. So then I was looking at our proceedings that were published, and they would say Rosewood, but the names are the exact same. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out. And then I found a record that there was a Magnolia 146 in Dinsmore, which is in Jacksonville now. And I'm like, okay. So then when I found more records, it would say Magnolia 148 Rosewood. So what I think happened was they would use the Rosewood under those official proceedings just so they wouldn't be confused with the other lodge.
Okay.
So that's how we finally put the pieces together.
And you did talk about the Saws family. Now, you said they bought the property, but the deeds I have, the property deeds that I have, the Saws family, a white family, donated an acre to Rosewood. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But I just want people to know the
Yeah.
connection to Rosewood and the Saws family.
Yeah,
Okay.
it didn't have a dollar amount or anything, so I didn't know that
Exactly.
part, but it was deeded to
Exactly.
your family.
My
actually.
family. Right.
So Nathan Robinson and Hayward Carrier, Elias Carrier were all the members of the lodge when that lodge got established, and they deeded that property.
And Isaac Carrier, you were asking me about other Carriers. Just James Carrier, who was Aaron Carrier's father.
Yeah, so the Robinsons, the Halls, the Goins, and the Carriers were like the central figures.
And the Bradleys.
The Bradleys.
Yes, exactly. I don't know if Monroe, I don't think so, but they were an established family there. But I don't think they are connected to the Masonic, because all of the information and the documents you have sent me, I don't remember.
I seen the Goins in the hall.
Yes, yes. Okay, and I'm just so proud of everything you have done. And you know, I was talking to you about Josiah T. Walls being the first black congressman in Florida. Okay, and you were telling me today, and I said, save it for the show.
Okay.
You were telling me today about Josiah T. Walls' position.
So we'll start with his, if we can, we'll start the beginning with him and how, so it kind of brings it to fruition when he establishes. So his father was a prominent doctor in Virginia, but he was still listed as a slave because of his color. So when he was confiscated by the Confederacy, he was forced to work basically as a human mule, pulling munitions and things for the cannons and so forth. But he was a very intelligent and learned man already. So he learned a lot. So he was ultimately freed, and then he decided, so Frederick Douglass gives this famous speech, Colored Man, Your Place is in the United States Infantry. So he ends up joining with Tillman Valentine, who becomes a prominent figure in Florida, and several other, Josiah Haynes Armstrong, who became a bishop of the AME Church. So they're with the 3rd Regiment. They actually fight with the Massachusetts 54th in that movie Glory. That brought them to be famed. So when he gets to Florida, he actually is in charge of defending the St. Johns River, Josiah T. Walls. So after Reconstruction, he becomes a general of the Florida militia. The Florida militia was really important because they were protecting polls for African Americans to vote during that time. So it isn't until the Great Compromise of 1877 that we lose the Florida militia and a lot of the protections that were in place to help African Americans. But Josiah T. Walls was brave. So he becomes the first African American congressman to serve in Washington. He serves 3 terms.
Okay.
Never completes 1 term. So they contested every election he ever won.
Okay.
So he probably averaged between 14 to 18 months per each time he was elected, because they would contest it. It would go to Supreme Court. They would contest the election. Then he would lose his seat for a few months. He'd come back and run again and win.
And I know who is partially responsible for that. Some of my people in Archer, because he did have connections in Archer. He taught school in Archer also. But I don't want to throw you off.
No,
but,
keep going.
Yes. And each year we recently started celebrating his birthday, which is December 30th. Okay, and this past year we also celebrated it for the second time. Last year when we celebrated it for the first time, you were there. And you spoke. And I'm so glad. And 2 years going on, I have been promising you need to come on my show.
Yes, ma'am.
So you are here today, and you're so
I just always fascinated with Josiah T. Walls.
Yes.
When he becomes mayor of Gainesville, starts a newspaper called The New Era. which it's hard to tell which ones came first. So I won't say he was the first, but he was among the first.
Okay.
So because it's hard to tell which one was established at which dates, but he is vocal. He is militant.
Yes.
And so in that time period, you are writing on behalf of your people, not being afraid to stand down.
Yes.
You are listed as the owner and editor of that newspaper, so we know that there were several attempts on Josiah T. Wall's life over different periods of life, especially when he returns from the Ku Klux Klan hearings of 1872. So while he's a congressman, there were several members from Florida delegation that had testified. T. Thomas Fortune's father, Emmanuel Fortune, he testifies. Horatio Bisbee, which was a white Republican, testifies. So now it's on record that they are telling the story of what's going on in the South, especially, in rural areas. So we know that like Jacksonville, Nassau County, Key West, Florida, Ocala, there was such larger black populations, so they were more protected because they had larger numbers. But here in the more rural communities of Florida, you had these small towns surrounded by other towns, so the protections weren't the same. So to do that under those circumstances was brave.
I know, and right here in Archer, you said Josiah T. Wall was contentious. Is that what you said? Okay, I think I am a little bit. What do you think?
A little bit.
You don't have to answer that. But anyway, my answer.
But you're reasonable and accommodating too.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's a plus. But anyway, even if I stand strong, that's a compliment too, because people will not. I will not allow anybody. Okay, you know that, to attack me.
But what you have in common with them is Josiah Walls was not afraid to call out his own political party.
Okay.
Emmanuel Fortune did the same thing.
Okay.
They weren't. So when people are rooted in truth,
Yes.
it's not the truth. That should never be partisan.
Exactly.
The truth is the truth.
Exactly. Exactly. It is. It really is the truth, and I enjoy that. That's my guess.
Oh, okay.
Do we need to stop? Okay, so being, I guess, reared in the same environment that Josiah T. Walls lived and planted here in Archer, okay, among my ancestors, like they call themselves the Archer Night Riders because they rode at night to protect the perimeters of their property. They also were men of worth. That was number one. They were men of worth, and they referred to everybody as Sir. Okay, Sir Urso, Sir Brown, Sir. Okay, and they also, the Archer Night Riders, men of worth, and the Knights of Pythias, which was a Masonic. So they were well organized and a part of the Masonic. Okay. So
these secret societies were really important.
Yes.
They didn't have Twitter, Facebook. So how do you carry the message?
On horses.
So what I meant through these organizations.
Okay. Right.
So in one town, you might have a Masonic lodge like we did in Rosewood, right? So we know that was tied to the Masons. But the Knights of Pythias in that same town would probably use that building because we don't know of another lodge building in Rosewood. The only one we've been able to identify is Magnolia Lodge.
Yes.
So, but they always cooperated, collaborated, and cross-pollinated.
They did.
So how do they find protections? How do they organize? How do they get together? And it was through these secret societies like the Oddfellows, Knights of Pythias, the Freemasons.
Yes.
And you had the Household of Ruth. You had women's organizations, which was really important because they were the foundation of the women's club movement of the 19th century, of the 20th century. So what I always found interesting is that when the women's club movement, the Federation of Women's Club, the Negro Women's Clubs, and all, as they were called at that time, I saw that the leadership were people from these Masonic organizations.
Right.
Why? Because they had learned Robert's Rules of Order, decorum, and so forth. So when they established these, they were naturally moved into these leadership roles. So they get the women the right to vote.
Right.
So, and that's part of the Rosewood story.
Exactly. Exactly, because I know, like, the Knights of Pythias there in Archer, the women were also, they were not called Knights of Pythias, they were called the Calanthes.
Yes, right.
Okay, but they, like you say, they had the right to vote, okay, and support their husband. Basically, that's what they did. It was a team effort. We had to strategize in order to survive.
So that 1920, in my opinion, the violence that took place in Florida is a result of women getting the right to vote.
Right.
So now so we know that the radical Republican Reconstruction era has come to an end. So now you have new philosophies of Jim Crow. So when you go back, you follow the path. First it was contesting elections.
Exactly.
Then it was voter suppression.
Yes.
And then it was outright keeping people from the right to vote. So
Okay.
when the Woodrow Wilson administration is over, because that, for me, in my opinion, is the final nail in the coffin for Reconstruction. Even though people say it was 1877, here in Florida we had public servants all the way into the early 19s. Like 1909, 1914, there were still African Americans in political positions, and they held high-ranking positions within the Republican Party itself for their statewide and national conventions.
Okay.
So when this new electorate comes, where you have women having the right to vote, it's going to scare people because they're going to think we're going to go back to Reconstruction. And
I hear you.
so when you find that Ocoee massacre with July Perry, and all of a sudden, a year and a half later, or close to 2 years later, you have the Perry massacre, and it's no coincidence that 2 weeks after the Perry massacre is the Rosewood
It's the
massacre.
Rosewood Massacre, and we're going to follow up on that after a minute. So it's about time for our first half. We're going to head to a quick break, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
I am Black History.
I am Rosewood Black History.
I am Florida
and
America's Black History.
and you are too.
January 1st, 1923, the KKK insurrectionists attacked Rosewood, killing 5, burning it down.
Because a white woman lied and cried, a black man assaulted me. Rosewood redevelopment is on its way.
Want to help? Visit rosewoodflorida.com.
Welcome back to Queen Lizzie Podcast, brought to you weekly from the Steve Spurrier Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We are here with Jerry Urso. The Queen Lizzie Podcast is brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union, live from the Meldon Law Gator Studios at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. And we're back, and I want to make sure our sponsors are recognized. Steve Spurrier, who owns the restaurant, is very, very passionate about Black history and allows us, and when I say us, the community, to talk, and to share history among our kids. Freddie Wiebe is the executive director for Steve Spurrier. Meldon Law is everything you ever dream of as far as being a lawyer and he has been with the University of Florida since 1970. And each week he does a athlete of the week. They are all very, very, very supportive of Rosewood and its history. And Jerry Benton is the director of the Credit USA Bank. Okay, and that's where we bank, of course. And for those of you out there that need to make a donation to help build the Rosewood Museum, go to www.rosewoodflorida.com and make a donation. Yes, we are in the process of building a museum. We have the renderings on our website. We have at least 4 pictures up. We have started the process, and we are coming up within the next 2 weeks with a Rosewood telethon where we are going to fundraise to make sure we build this Rosewood Museum in Archer, however, but it's going to be in honor of the Rosewood school teacher, my aunt, who lived, survived, and it will be named, we haven't finalized the name, but we're thinking something about, she has a very long name, Mahalda Augusta Brown Carrier. It will be in remembrance of her. And we're going to build it, as I said, or if I didn't say, in Archer, on the very same property where she was born and where she grew up. Today, we still own that property, and I think that's a plus. So we need a museum there to make sure we archive all of her artifacts. Why and how did she earn artifacts if the house burned down and if they lost everything? Good question. There was a good man, the sheriff, Bob Walker, Robert Bob Walker, the Levy County Sheriff that lived in Brunson. And by the way, his house today is still in Brunson, located in Brunson, which is in Levy County. And his granddaughter, I talked with her. We communicate. She is well aware of Rosewood. In fact, I have photos that she sent to me of her grandfather. So when you see those pictures on in the news, those are Getty pictures. Getty, they're not Rosewood pictures. And it really sends a negative message, that's me, okay, from my opinion, about misusing Getty pictures. Many of these stories you hear are not stories of the people that know the story. They're somebody else's story, okay? And I'd like to say one more thing about how many people were in Rosewood when that happened. Not very many. How do you know, Lizzie? Because I have the school records, okay? And you can always look on the school records and you can tell by the parents' signature and how many parents were there. There were 20 parents and about 30 kids. So you know Rosewood was not that big with hundreds of people, okay? And I also have the school record of the white school, okay? So it was very few white children, parents in Rosewood. However, this also happened before the Rosewood Massacre. When they built the Comer sawmill in Sumner, many of the Rosewood residents not migrated, but they transferred to work at this bigger sawmill, the Comer brothers. And I can understand that. They paid more money. Okay, so they went with the flow, or they went with the money. Okay, so my mom said when you tell that story, you make sure you allow people or let people know that how the people treated each other and how they were able to escape Rosewood. I'm going to dictate your song, and she did. 13 verses. Am I going to sing all 13 today? Of course not. I'm going to sing her favorite 3 songs to let you know that there were human beings like the sheriff. And when I told you about the artifacts that we are going to have in the museum, before they burned down the houses, the KKK, after they had come to Rosewood and done the damage they wanted to do, then they came back. okay, to burn the houses down and steal all of their goods and merchandise. But when they got to my Aunt MG's house, Gussie, the sheriff drove up and he said, "Don't touch anything in this house. I'm stealing everything in this house." He had to talk their language to keep them.
Correct.
Okay.
At bay.
You're so smart. But that's exactly what he did. And he said, "I'm taking everything." He got 2 pillowcases from her house, her bedroom, and a zinc tub that was hanging on the porch. And as much of her items, whatever, clothes, handkerchiefs, whatever, jewelry that he could put in the 2 pillowcases and the zinc tub, he brought it to her. Okay, so that's where the artifacts come from. Real Rosewood artifacts. And after I sing this song, then I know you have something you want to say. You want to say it now, you want to hear my song.
You go sing your song.
And my mother said, "I know you can't sing, but you know, black folks back then told stories."
It was part of the oral tradition that we were discussing earlier.
Exactly. And when I was growing up, I didn't hear Cinderella stories. I heard family stories, real stories.
But if it wasn't for those oral histories,
Yes.
I wouldn't have a compass to find what I'm looking for today. So I'll give you a case in point.
Okay.
You always told me that about Josiah T. Walls.
Yes.
So when I go through the records, I found that he was the district deputy grandmaster of Levy County. Well, there's only one lodge in Levy County.
Okay.
So when they established that lodge in 1893, it's Josiah T. Walls that established that lodge. So he would have been, and so we know that Nathan Robinson, your great grandfather, was the first West Master, and then it was Elias Carrier, Haywood Carrier. So a lot of that oral history has
Yes.
been proven right because we have documentation that Josiah T. Walls was in Rosewood.
All right. That's awesome. Okay. So this song that my mom shared with me, she talked about Cedar Key was a peninsula. Had the sheriff not stepped in to help save the black folks, people would have died. So one of the verses says, the Cedar Key, it started in Cedar Key. That's where the train hub was for Levy County. And there were several train conductors there. But the 2 most important train conductors during this occasion, during this tragedy, was the Bryce brothers. And they lived in Cedar Key, but they would go home once a week, maybe, I don't know, hauling different items out of Cedar Key to Jacksonville. But anyway, the Cedar Key train conductors were told to pick up in Rosewood. Standing by the tracks with a lantern, his young school teacher stood, waiting in desperation to carry out the sheriff's plans, rounding up the hidden survivors to board the midnight train. The sheriff and the store owner worked around the clock. Oh Lord, informed the train conductors just when and where to stop. Pick up the men, women, and children who were hiding out and bring them to Archer, Florida, traveling the same old route. Bob Walker and John Wright took on a daring risk. Put the survivors on the train, Lord, and sent them off with a kiss. Notified the Gainesville families to be on the lookout for their kin. Told them the train was a-coming and told them exactly when. And I'm going to stop it right there so I know you have something that you need to say.
Well, a couple of things. One of the stories that really needs to be changed is they try to portray the Rosewood Massacre as the Tulsa race riot.
Okay.
And that's not the story of Rosewood.
No.
The story of Rosewood was just pure, unadulterated hate. There was nothing to gain. I mean, because we know that land was vacant for years and years, so people didn't till it or anything. It was just left vacant. It was a ghost town.
It was.
And I'm positive that even though the spark was Fannie Mae Taylor,
Yes.
it would if it didn't happen that night, it would have been another spark.
Yes.
And it wasn't for financial gain. They just didn't want. They wanted to eradicate a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
To say that they were uneducated would be a lie, because I can tell you, as a Mason, that the ritual, you had to be well spoken, be able to memorize, read, and write. So we know that from an early age they were intelligent.
Yes.
The fact that we found, when I was so happy when I found that benefit certificate that I gave you at the opening of our museum.
Yes, yes.
Because there's nothing else survives. We have something that was from Levy County.
Confirmation.
Confirmation, right? That the Knights of Pythias were here.
Yes.
And I was so glad that whoever way back 100 years ago preserved it and put it in plastic and preserved it. And like when I went to my Grand Master, I was like, we can't keep this. And I said, because I said, if at the Rosewood Museum, they don't have anything that physically connects them to that history, and now we do, because everything was burned to the ground.
Exactly.
And so, he was so gracious enough to say, absolutely.
That's right. And I am very happy that we're going to be able to display it in our...
But that's where it belongs.
Yes.
It belongs there. And, and it just tickled my heart when I found it.
Mine too. When you gave it to me. Thank you.
But it survives,
Yes.
And so because the whole town was burned to the ground and there's very few artifacts or anything within the town that were actually in Levy County at that time, to say this proves we were here.
Exactly. Exactly. That is so true. That is so true. So I'm going to give you closing words. What would you like to say, end with?
I want to say that my journey as a historian has only been enhanced since I met you in 2012. You have been a mentor. You taught me to improve my research and so forth, and you document everything. It taught me a valuable lesson, and so to become an author and historian, you were definitely part of the shoulders that I stand on. And I just want to say I love you very much for everything.
Oh, thank you very much. And I also told him, and I didn't know, he said he has become an author. And I do. He gave me these 2 books today. Okay. And he has become an author. Thank you. I'm going to read them tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you so much. I'm glad I was one of your teachers.
You were.
I'm honored. So I am continuously humbled, honored, and blessed to meet people daily like you and invite them to join in peace building, healing, and reconciliation through learning about the history of Rosewood. That will wrap up today's episode number 143. I am Queen Lizzie. Until next time, goodbye. This is my story, and I'm sticking to it.